Good to go?
Yep, we're good.
Okay.
We're good.
This is Stephen Puri. I'm the co-founder of Centered. And today I want to talk to you about flow states, which are a way in which you can concentrate and perform at a very high level and also reduce your stress. So I want to begin with a question, which is, how many people have felt overwhelmed or stressed out or gone to bed without everything done and then promised you get up early the next morning and work on it? You can drop an emoji, you can drop it in chat. I'm just kind of curious how many people have had that experience. They're feeling like there's too much to do, I'm stressed out. Okay, got at least 3 people out of 20 some odd. 4. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk and give you some information for about 15 minutes. And then I'll be available for all of your questions, whether they're about flow states, whether about the product that we made that helps you get into flow state. And I'll stick around as long as you need, okay? So flow state is a state where you're in such a deep concentration, doing something you find to be worthwhile and challenging, that you kind of lose track of time. And the phrase flow state comes from this Hungarian psychologist, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who noticed that there was very similar things that like top athletes, painters, sculptors, theoretical physicists, great thinkers use to describe this state where they just kind of like lose track of time. Like Picasso talking about he'd just stay up all night, forgot to go to the bathroom, forgot to eat, but created Guernica or something. And Michael Jordan talking about being in the zone. There are a lot of different names people use for it. And I'm going to screen share and talk to you about how this works, because it might be very helpful for you to get work done and feel less stressed, which is really important. Okay, so you guys, I hope, can see my screen right now. It's a slide with a guy surfing. Is that right? You can see it?
Yeah, we see it.
Perfect. Okay. So this is the guy I mentioned, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and this is what he noticed in a book he called Flow, which was the seminal work where he named this state, this high-performing state. He said the best moments are not just like when we're sitting on the sofa. It's actually when your body, your mind are stretched, doing something that you want to do that is challenging. And one of the key parts of being in a flow state is you start to be indistractable. You stop thinking about picking up your phone and checking whatever for me, it's TikTok. I'm addicted, but you stop thinking about Tik or Snap or Insta, checking your WhatsApp, checking your messages, blah, blah. And you actually get into this state where you're hyper-focused. This kind of focus is something that was so interesting. There's even another researcher, this guy, Charles Lim at Johns Hopkins, who said, maybe I can figure out where in the brain this thing happens. So he did functional MRI scans of people that he thought were in flow states. And what he used jazz musicians, because he said jazz is a really interesting art form where you kind of have to lose yourself in the music. If you're like in a jazz trio or quartet, like you're improvising with other people. And what he found using a functional MRI machine is that when the musicians were in flow, their prefrontal cortex kind of shut down. And that's the part of your brain that's almost like managing activities, being self-conscious. It allows you to then actually do stuff without like having some overlord watching you do it. So that was really interesting. And this guy, George Mumford, he's one of the guys that knows Michael Jordan, knows a lot of these top basketball players. And he's like, we call it the zone. When you hear these basketball players talking about, I was just me and the ball. There were no scoreboards, spectators, opponents. It was just me and the ball in that moment. And that's what it feels like. And I want you guys to be able to get there because it's amazing. And this is really, my buddy Ulf and I started this company because we suck. Like we get distracted all the time. And I hated the feeling of going to sleep at night and being like, I didn't get my stuff done. And okay, I'll just get up early tomorrow morning and try and get it done before work. And we realized that it's not just top athletes and artists, musicians, and Albert Einstein with his thought experiments. We just look into space to figure stuff out. It's like anyone can kind of do it. There's some ways to get into flow. This might be the most important slide of this deck. So if you guys screenshot or whatever, and I'm going to walk you through it because these are the things you can write. You can read hundreds of pages of this, and it boils down to these things. Things that help you get in a flow state are doing something with your goal that's challenging but attainable. In other words, it's not super easy, like loading the dishwasher. You're probably not going to get into a flow state, brushing your teeth. So it has to be challenging, but it has to be something you're good at. Like, it's not like, hey, I just picked up a racket, I'm going to win Wimbledon or the US Open, right? Your attention is focused. You know what it is you're looking at. There's an intrinsic reward. Like, if you get this done, there's something that will make you feel good. You lose self-consciousness. You stop thinking about, oh, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, I'm fidgety, I'm itchy, da, da, da. You lose sense of time. You look up, 2 hours have gone by, you got everything done. You're like, wow, I didn't even think about anything else. The activity shows something where you get feedback. If you're coding, it's something where you can, test your code. You can actually see if it runs, you can fix it. And it is it's a balance between how skilled you are and it's still challenging. So it's not something you've done 1,000 times you can do in your sleep. It's something you know how to do, but it's still challenging. And the last thing, as I mentioned, is when you get in that state, you kind of lose track of, oh, I have to go pee. I've got to go drink something. I've got to, scratch. It's kind of magical, and you get a lot of stuff done. You can go to sleep. Concentration is one of the benefits of this, is that you feel really focused. We're going to talk about that. And this is another aspect of being in a flow state. And I don't know how important this is for you guys at your point in life. I'm older than all of you. And I realize that it is really important. Sorry? Did someone say something?
I think someone was just unmuted. You can keep on going.
Okay. So this is really important to me and my partner, Ulf, who started this company, was that we wanted people to understand that you do your best work when you actually take care of yourself. So we built into our platform, Centered, break reminders, where it's like, hey, if you want to do a Pomodoro, every 25 minutes, your coach will remind you, hey, why don't you stand up, take off 5 minutes, like look in the distance, stretch, get a glass of water, like walk around, stretch your legs, do something, do a breathing exercise. And it really does fuel your best work. It's not slacking off. It's really important. So that's the end of this deck about flow states. Now, what I'd like to show you next is, let me pop out of here, is let me talk to you a little bit about what we're doing specifically. And this part of the presentation is really about how we created Centered around those ideas I just showed you, which is, this is us. This may be you. I don't know how many of these things bug you, but like a lot of these stopped us from working well. TikTok I put here because it is my vice. I admit it. I think it's amazing. And I always tell myself I'll pick it up for 5 minutes, and it's like 45 minutes go by and I'm like, what happened? And this is often, how we feel later. It's like, oh man, how did I get to be this late and get everything done? So we created Centered literally to block out your distractions so you can get your work done sooner and have more time to do whatever the hell you want to do, This is what Centered is. It's a little app that you run on the side of your laptop. It is a timer. There's a coach. You can pick a coach, an AI coach, that will help you as you work. Will welcome you to your session, will congratulate you when you finish stuff. You open up Twitter or Insta, your coach will be like, do you really need to be scrolling around Instagram right now? You can find a lot of different, like 50 coach voices in there. There's, I don't know if you guys know some of these TikTokers, they have like millions of followers, like Student Life 101 and That Relatable Student and Fern Solente and all these like big TikTokers donated their voices because they were like, oh, my audience actually really needs this. So it's super cool. And you can choose their voices. When you sign up for Centered, you get to choose a coach. So that said, there's like 150 hours of focus music. So you can choose different playlists. You can hook up your Spotify with something you like, because it's nice once everything's blocked out to have music. Again, it goes back to a lot of the flow state research. These are the coaches I talked about. There's this guy in Astro Lounge. His name's Ben Holmes. He's a big engineer. He's an open source guy. And he created an entire coaching voice that's on a space station. So if you choose Astro Lounge, Ben Holmes, when you sign up, he literally talks to you like, get back to the space station, cadet. It's like, it's super funny. Cassidy Williams is another engineer. She has a couple 100,000 Twitter followers. And she did this because her followers on Twitter and Discord, she was like, they would love this. If you know Eddie Jahood and Sarah, super nice people. And at the end of every session, you get a productivity score you can click on, and you can learn little tips, like little 60-second videos about different ways to get better, like, oh, how to monotask, how to time box, how to eat the frog, like all these concepts from, the big productivity books. And they're all in there. So you can, improve. If that's where you want to go, it's available. this is what I mentioned, is you'll find little blog posts inside the app. You'll find, 90-second videos on something to do at night. And this is basically how we work, is we have a free version, gives you a bunch of stuff. We have a pro plan that we designed basically for our friends who are all engineers and designers making a bunch of money. And what we talked about when Brandon and I chatted is we thought this would help you guys, and we are willing to give you the pro version for free, so you can use it, because we think it's really important. You guys are the next generation. Like, you're the ones who have to kind of save the earth from all the mess that we made of it. And so I'll tell you, this is what you should do. You can screenshot this. Is if you email me, that is my personal email address. After you sign up, like sign up for the free version, email me saying, here's the email address I used. I will go into the back end and upgrade you to Centered Pro for life. You'll never have to pay forever. So that is our offer to you, because we'd like for you guys to benefit from this both this weekend, see if you can get into a flow state while you're hacking on EcoHacks, and as you go about your schoolwork. And I'm going to stop screen sharing now. I hope you guys screenshotted that if you want Centered Pro, and I will answer questions. Is someone talking to me on Discord? Because I hear a bunch of beeps in the background.
Oh, sorry. I think that's our Discord server. So I think you may have to mute the notifications.
Yeah. Let me do that. Okay. So anyone can raise their hand or shout out or, okay. So Sanchi Patel, how do you truly become free from distractions? I'll tell you, it is a muscle that you exercise just like a muscle you would exercise learning how to play basketball or tennis or football, or whatever. It has become something it's easier for me now than it was a year ago, because you sort of develop the sense of like, oh, I'm going to now get my work done. I'm going down to the state, and you can do it for an hour or two. We actually reward you for doing about 90 minutes at a time, because research shows that your blood glucose to your brain, essentially brain fuel, kind of peaks around 90 minutes. And then after about 2 hours, you're kind of depleted. So the productivity scores don't go up. You can't do a session for 3 hours and try and get a high score. We don't want you to. We want you to work for about 90 minutes, tops 2 hours, and then take a serious break and refresh your brain. So the answer to how do you truly become free from distractions is block your notifications. Like Centered will block all your notifications for you. You can have a coach, you can have music, and it'll help you just focus on what you have to do. I hope that answers your question, Sanchi. Also, how can you work even if you're unmotivated? That's something that you have to look at. Like, if you don't want to do what you're doing, if it is assigned work and you hate it, you got to address that. You got to find out who's giving you the work and talk to them about, like, it doesn't mean anything to me. I feel like I'm going nowhere. And there's no amount of flow state that's going to help you, because to get into flow, you kind of need to believe what you're doing is interesting and worthwhile. Who has another question? Don't be shy. I'll answer any question you have. How long did it take to make Centered? The first version, Sneha, we got out in about 4 months. We built a little prototype. We showed it to our friends who are largely engineers in Silicon Valley. They told us what they loved. They told us what they hated. They used it a bit, and they gave us notes for version 2. That took us another 2 months to build that one. We're currently on version 5 that we released 3 days ago. And the current version, because we had built so much before, only took us like 2.5, 3 weeks to build in QA. And we have it, in case you're wondering, our little company has 10 people, myself, my co-founder, Ulf, and then we have 4 devs, a customer success guy named Michael, who's wonderful, and QA person and admin help. Ready for the next question. Don't be shy. I'm here all night. Okay. Is there a workaround to downloading Center on our Chromebook? Oh man, I wish there were. I am so sorry about that. We had a web app you could run in a browser, and it just wasn't as beautiful as the desktop app. The native desktop app is just so smooth and fast. So we actually just retired the web browser version on Tuesday. I'm sorry about that. You're not the only person who is sad about that. Also, some engineers we know that work on Linux, they're upset. What were the main challenges? Biggest challenge, and I'll tell you this as you go out into the world and you guys are going to create amazing stuff. Biggest challenge is make sure you know exactly the problem that you are solving. And I'll tell you, as we've been developing Centered, we've had more and more people come to us and say, oh, this is why I use it. And some people use it because they're lonely. They're doing remote studying, remote learning, work from home, distance learning, all these things are basically saying like, I'm not around people anymore. And Centered, you go into these groups and you're surrounded by people. A bunch of universities have set up groups for their students. So their students can all at Penn, they can all go into a Centered group, hear a coach, kind of coach them. So the biggest challenge was figuring out exactly what the problem was. And we realized it was helping people focus, but also feel like they're not alone. And that was a kind of fun thing. And by the way, if you guys want to set up an EcoHacks group, I'll happily help you with that. What technologies does our app use? It's an Electron app. It's largely built in React. And one of my teammates, if you know Eric Rasmussen, he's a pretty well-known engineer. He talks a lot about flow states and state machines. And it is largely built using state machines. So there's that. Who's got something else? How did you, okay. Oh, good. We have a bunch of questions. Okay. How did you start coding the app? What resources did you use? My buddy Ulf is the technical co-founder, right? So he's the engineer, and where he started, he uses largely, VS Code and Git and stuff like that. And we decided early on to make an Electron app for that reason, that we wanted to, be able to iterate quickly and sit on that technology. So then we've used Hubnub and Twilio because we do obviously messaging and some video stuff. We use Firebase in our backend, and we use Segment for all of our events. We use Amplitude for our analytics. I think those are the key ones right now. Okay, so tips, Spencer, tips for doing something that is almost too difficult. Okay, here's another tip for you guys that I learned along the way is always have good friends, always have smart friends, because you will be able to teach them something and they'll be able to teach you something. It's a great thing about hackathons. You would team up with someone that you'll learn from each other. At this point in your career, and in your life and soon to be career, align yourself with people who are smart, because you just pick up stuff along the way. So when something is too difficult, I always look around my friend group and I was like, oh, Adam would know. Like a friend of mine, Adam, created Siri, the thing you talk to in your iPhone. And he created Bixby too for Samsung. And you'll always be grinding on something, and then you'll think, man, whom do I know that would know this? And it's like, I should call Adam. He knows a lot about like machine learning stuff. I'll call him, like when we were developing our AI coaches, the engine for our AI coach, Adam was the one we called because he'd been working on Siri for 20 years or whatever before before Jobs even bought it. Let's see. So now, how did you incorporate the AI part of it? We realized early on that one of the things that made Centered fun for people, maybe the biggest thing that made it fun, was that there was actually a coach who talked to you. And our early users loved it. And our main coach is called Noah. He's this British dude. And he just has a little sense of humor. And what was interesting was, as we started developing, okay, well, what is it he should say? Because people are really liking it. He used to just like welcome you, like, let's have a great session, and you finish your work, you'd be like, great job. And then we figured out, okay, so we need actually some interesting logic in there, because people want to be nudged if they, open up a distracting app, like, oh, they go to YouTube and start watching shorts or something, or watching, YouTube videos. So then we developed a distraction engine where when you go into Center, by the way, this is in there, you can specify what websites distract you, and your coach will then nudge you if you open up those sites. So if you're like, oh, I go on Amazon and shop, I go on YouTube and watch videos, I go on Twitter and I tweet, or like you can customize that list. And that was basically how the AI grew out, because it was like people loved the coach so much. And then once we had these other like engineering influencers, like Ken C, if you know Ken C. Dodds, he's one of our voices because he used Centered. And he wrote to us, he's like, hey, this is Ken C. Dodds. I love your product. Can I be one of the voices? And we're like, okay, here are the 800 lines you have to record them all, send them to us. We'll chop them up and feed them into the AI engine. And he did it. And that's when we were like, oh, this might be a cool thing. Like, and other coaches wanted to do it. And then those student influencers I told you, like Student Life 101 and, that relatable student and, Fernando Solente and all, we're just like, oh, we want to do this. Or, we'll put together a group and our followers from TikTok will want to be in there because it's really fun. So did you guys create the music? What does it mean by scientifically designed custom music? You looked at the website and I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Josh. So what it means is this is, again, this is other people's research that we benefited from. This is not like we did it. We're not that smart, but we read it. And a lot of the research points to there's certain ways in which your brain works that are rhythmic and they respond to rhythm. And for example, we have a playlist called Binaural Heaven, and it's at 40 hertz, which is supposed to, there's this whole, whether you're beta, gamma, delta, sort of waves, but the binaural beats have a frequency difference between your left and right channels. So we researched that. We're like, oh, it seems like 40 hertz is like a good focus. It's not creativity, it's not sleep, it's like a good focus kind of like frequency. So we did a playlist with that. We found that a lot of the other research pointed to 60 to 90 beats per minute was a good rhythm. There are certain key signatures that seem to help in research, seem to help people focus more. And we do almost all the music is background, like ambient, non-vocal, highly rhythmic music. So that's what we did. And the scientifically designed is really because we just read all the papers on people who had studied other people listening to music while they had to focus and work. Excellent question. I really appreciate you read the website. So what else we got? Who's got another question? Brandon, have I answered all your questions? Do you know everything about Center, everything about flow states?
I guess I could ask you a question. So, do you have any future plans for this company that you think might be interesting to our participants? Like anything in the future you want to add to this?
Yes. Our goal is to help working professionals that have a decent salary use this. There are a lot of pro features that are perfect for them. They can pay us like we have a freemium model and support students because we know students can't pay. They need this. A lot of them, I do, as you know, a bunch of hackathons. They need it a lot. And that's kind of our thing, me and Ulf, for just feeling like, hey, when we were your age, people helped us. They were more established and they gave us tools in our careers. And this was our opportunity to be like, hey, here's something we built that may benefit you guys. And, we love the idea of EcoHacks because, my generation has done a lot of damage to the world and we're really looking to you guys to help out, sort it, Any other thoughts? How is productivity scored? I'll tell you, Spencer, when you finish your session and you get your first score, click on the score and you'll see all the component pieces. They're like 4 modules about how long did you work? If you were distracted, how much time do you spend in distractions? Are you following certain principles about, starting with your hardest task and things like that? So there's a bunch of stuff there, and every one of those little informational like question marks, you can click it and it will tell you about that part of the score. You can click on different modules and go deeper down and learn, Cal Newport wrote this about monotasking, or Tim Ferriss talked about, this kind of time boxing. So that is how the productivity is scored. And it's a score up to 800. You can get between 200 and 800. Is there a reason why the logo is shaped like a plant leaf? It is. I have a daily yoga practice. I, every morning at 7:15, go to a yoga class, and it's incredibly meditative for me. It helps me get into my flow state. And Ulf, my buddy, we started this, he also has a meditation practice, and lotus leaves and the lotus plant are often associated with, meditation, mindfulness. And we thought the lotus flower, a stylized version of it, was a good way of expressing, what we're doing. We want people to be calmer, healthier, happier, because they're getting their work done. Hope that makes sense. You guys have great questions. Anything else? Do we have other probing questions that you guys want to know about? I hope we have an amazing hackathon. I'm very curious, Sunday, who wins, how it turns out. Again, anyone who signs up for Center, just email me. That's my personal address. I'll upgrade you. I hope it helps with your focus for this. I hope you guys have careers as, engineers and designers and founders that change the world. I can't wait to try it. Maybe something. Spencer, I hope you dig it, man. And if you use it, email me. Tell me what you think. If there are features you want, tell me. Like, we are a small team. We can actually build stuff when someone asks for something. It's not like there are thousands of people with lots of red tape. It's like me and Ulf and 8 other people. So tell us what you think, and we can help out. Thank you, Sanchi. I'm glad it looks cool so far. I hope you think that by Sunday. And I hope you keep using it. It's free for you guys. And this is why we built it, because Ulf and I were super distracted and we got stressed out. We didn't want anyone else to feel that way.
Yes, like I have another question for you. Is
Okay.
this your first time creating a startup, or have you had a history with this process? Since I know you're a little older
I
than
have
people
done
here.
other companies. I had a company called Centropolis that we did digital visual effects, like computer generated effects for movies. Sold that. That was super cool. And then recently, I started with a buddy of mine, a company called Arsenic. There was or it still is, a sort of old school MTV meets like Maxim magazine. It was like a fun kind of like party. You can find it on Insta, you can find it on Snap, at arsenic.tv. And started that. At a certain point, it was off and running. My buddy is still running that. I wanted to do something, more like this with my life and create, products that helped a lot of people instead of were just fun. But that was super fun. I'm glad I did it, but we'll see where it goes. Any other questions? Okay, if no one else has any other questions, should we wrap it up?
I guess, yeah, if you have any closing thoughts, then maybe you can share it with everyone. But yeah.
I will simply say this. I remember when I was in your guys' shoes, we didn't have the same tools you guys have now. And I think it's amazing to have all of these platforms and these protocols where you can build so much so quickly. I hope you have an amazing hackathon. I hope it is another step for each of you towards, building the tools that will, help hundreds, thousands, millions, billions of people. So I wish you all well. And if there are ways in which, we can help, please let me know.
All right. So thanks to Steven, and Centered is an extremely interesting app, and you guys should definitely check it out. So yeah, thank you guys for listening to this.
Okay. Have a great night, you guys.
All right.
Thank you everyone for
Bye,
coming.
everyone. Yep. Thank you.